state of our formerly deceased subjects living.
We're back already? Time really does fly. Hello everyone, and welcome to 4+. My name is Mr. Ratio, or Mr. Dr. Professor Ratio, if you prefer that. And today I will be joined by my co-host, Mr. Minus. We shall be continuing our examination and analysis of the infamous Arkham Tapes, created by the Batfeed. Last week we went over the first set of tapes, aka Volume 1, and this video we shall be going over Volume 2. For those who are unaware, the Arkham Tapes are a series of entries about Batman's most notorious villains, with a little bit of horror injected into their stories and backgrounds. If you haven't seen us cover Volume 1 yet, or watched Volume 1 in general, I would highly recommend going back and checking those out so you're in the loop. Be sure to kick back, relax, grab some popcorn, and enjoy, because it's going to be one hell of a time. Incoming transmission. The first entry we shall be going over for Volume 2 is Incoming Transmission. The tape begins with an emergency broadcast warning of an incoming transmission from Officer 0011 to MOPA Director 0002. Our main man, James Gordon, or Jim Gordon, begins delivering an emergency report to the director, explaining that he believes that the target will be active again soon, most likely on the 27th. Gordon's facility has been compromised, and if he doesn't reach out in the next 48 hours, he's probably dead or worse. Distant gunshots are then heard outside of the room Gordon is in. He continues that his unit has been successfully undercover for the past 2 months, but it's likely that the target knows where they are now. Considering 6 of them are now dead, he figures that if he's the last one alive, he hopes his transmission is useful to the mission. Even 40 of them weren't enough to stop him. Gordon sees something off camera, and in typical horror movie fashion, he screams and the tape cuts off. It turns back on to a golem type of Batman crouching in a hallway before he notices the camera on the floor. He then roars and does a run on all fours to the camera. End of tape. So not the direction I was expecting these tapes to go. I mean, the villains have all been utter freaks so far, so I kind of figured Batman was gonna be the most normal one here, but he clearly took some bath salts or something, because what the fuck was that? Either Bruce is tweaking or someone is pretending to be Batman, but either way, I have no idea why anyone continues to live in Gotham. As for what the MOPA is, that's still unclear, and what James Gordon's role is in all of this is still vague, and we're left with more questions than answers, but I'm sure those answers will become clear as the series goes on. Halloween Special. The next tape we have is the Halloween Special. So the tape begins with a disclaimer that the following footage is owned by the MOPA, and blah blah blah, copyright stuff, you'll get thrown in jail, taken out back and shot if this gets leaked, you know, the usual government threats. The tape begins with an interview from subject 0103, who is revealed to be none other than Alfred the Butler, with 2 T's. Jim Gordon directs Alfred to have a seat and explain what's going on. Alfred reluctantly reveals that he's here because he has some information regarding his employer, Bruce Wayne. Alfred explains that he's been Bruce's butler for many years, and he would have continued to keep this secret, but he just can't anymore. What is the secret, you and Jim may ask? Bruce Wayne is Batman. Holy shit! Jim doesn't seem shocked, and kind of figured, and Alfred says he felt like he had to reveal this because Bruce has taken this whole Batman thing too far. Jim asks then what he could have taken farther than beating criminals to a bloody pulp, and Alfred claims this is no joking matter. Hold up, Alfred, my guy. I love you. I really do. But in what fucking world is Jim's point a joke? He has the most valid point. Bruce will break your spine and demand you to talk. And that's not taking it too far. Anyway, Alfred decides to take it back to the beginning, and the following footage is from Batman's body cam. Batman answers a phone call from Joker and demands to know why Joker's bothering him. And like the true lover he is, Joker wants Batman in Arkham Asylum with him and everyone else. Joker begins threatening a young woman on the phone that he has with him, Pearl, a new employee at the asylum. Joker taunts her with her dream of becoming an artist and forces her to draw a house as Pearl cries. Joker then takes the pencil from her and slowly starts driving it into her eye, with Batman screaming no, and the tape cuts back to the interview with Alfred. Essentially, the decline of Batman started with the Joker. specifically Joker's attempt to take over Arkham Manor. The next body cam intro is of Batman coming across Clayface in the city, with Clayface pleading with Batman that he's sick and he needs Batman's help. Clayface tries to touch Batman, but Bats is able to kick him in the leg, and Clayface fucks off and is apprehended and sent to Arkham. Alfred mentions that Clayface's touch is deadly to normal humans, since it can dissolve people. The following tape is of Batman coming across Scarecrow outside of Arkham, with Scarecrow muttering to himself the Raven poem by Edgar Allan Poe. The tape then becomes distorted and cuts off. Jim and Alfred also mention after this tape that some rumors spread that Crane was able to discover a portal to another dimension through the use of fear, but it's just a rumor at the end of the day. The final tape that Bruce gave Alfred access to was his run-in with Killer Croc, with Croc lunging at Batman, but being fended off by Batman stabbing him before Croc comes in for another attack, and the footage ends. Alfred states that Bruce erased any other footage following that interaction, and he has only speculations, not a clear answer as to why. These encounters changed Bruce, and he became obsessed with these villains he encountered and the horrors that they were capable of inflicting. Bruce thought he could harness the strengths of each of these villains without the weaknesses or side effects of each villain. After each enhancement, so to speak, Alfred recognized Bruce less and less, until he became the very thing he swore to destroy, a monster. Jim thanks Alfred for his time and for the information, and once Alfred tries to leave, Jim essentially kind of comes up with the BS, we have to hold you here for your safety, and so Alfred obviously protests before the tape ends. Thus leads us into the beginning of the initial incoming transmission. So, we at least now know why Batman is an absolute menace. And no, not that absolute Batman. It seems that Harvey Dent's words really do echo even all these years later. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Now that we have some context as to what Batman's been up to, let's see what the other villains are doing in this timeline. Next up,
Riddler. Of all the Batman villains, the Riddler might be the one with the most diverse set of depictions. In some, he is an IT geek. Others, he is a GCPD precinct nerd. In another, he's an emo. Recently, he was a serial killer. And of course, in the past, he was Jim Carrey. To make it simple, the Riddler is a man named Edward Nygma. I guess Peter Uzzell was too on the nose. Later renditions referred to him as Edward Nashton, but regardless, his motif is, well, riddles. The Riddler would commit crimes and leave riddles behind for Batman to solve, hinting at his next attack, a base of operations. Basically, the riddles gave Batman an advantage, which was also Riddler's downfall. In many stories, Riddler does this out of pure ego and a critical desire to be acknowledged as smarter than his enemies. Of course, since Batman is Batman, he always solves the riddles and puts an end to all of his schemes. He's a fan favorite and one of Batman's oldest foes. That said, how do the Arkham Tapes handle him? We start out with our log and are greeted with an ad for Nygma Tech. The company has created a new gaming console called the Nygma Box and has VR capabilities. Finally, I can play Halo in VR. The ad gives us a phone number to call with 3 easy payments of $59.98. Beat that, Micro Sony. Interesting note, the disclaimer at the bottom says that the company is not liable for side effects such as insanity or death. Perhaps this requires another beta test. It should be noted that the Nygma Box is actually a real thing in the movies. If you are a fan of Batman Forever, first of all, rest in peace Val Kilmer. Secondly, you'd know this box essentially is trying to read the minds of its user. The ad ends and we are greeted with our informative text. We see a man up against a wall with our doctor known as Jeremiah Arkham. For the sake of time, Jeremiah Arkham is related to Amadeus Arkham, who created the asylum. He is similar to Hugo Strange in that he is a prominent figure of Arkham Asylum and a ruthless dick. He's got more history, but for now, that's all you need to know. It's September 12th, 1994, and we're about to interview patient 83442, otherwise known as Edward Nashton at Arkham Manor. The Riddler has been paralyzed for about 2 years now, with no signs of being conscious. This is because in his last run with Batman, he was conducting some kind of ritual, but ever since Batman interrupted it, he's been stuck like this. Yeah, need excuse, Batman. I saw the bruises you left on this poor nerd. You can't fool me. It is believed that whatever the Riddler got in contact with basically left him only able to communicate through technology. With this radio, he hopes he can somehow conduct an interview. Long shot, Doc, but hey, don't know if you don't try. To our shock, it works. The Riddler claims he has been better, how ungrateful, and our interview goes on. He gives the doctor a riddle of what has no teeth but gnaws, no bells but rings out.
No, wait, don't tell me.
The doctor doesn't play along, to the dismay of Ed. He plays a bit of a smartass role with the doctor before he says Carcosa. He explains that it is a play with no known author, but it speaks of a place called Carcosa. It is seen as the ultimate riddle. As a result, Edward wanted to solve it. By the time Batman caught him, he had finished the whole play and found him. Riddler then claims he liked the color green due to its connotation with nature, but how it also relates to another color, yellow. Dr. Arkham is a little confused and asks who E is. Riddler says he cannot be named. Oh my god, it's a Harry Potter crossover. The being is a king who will burn Gotham, and the Riddler is to be his herald. The session is ended, but Riddler starts tweaking out and the screen goes black. We see footage of the VR stuff as a voice recites a poem seemingly telling of the end of the world as it falls to the king in yellow before our video ends. Right, so there is a rabbit hole to jump into on this one, so get ready folks. Riddler here is depicted in a very unique light. He is not like anything we've seen before as he's paralyzed and seems to have some kind of connection with a higher cosmic being. This Riddler is a lot more spiritual than normally depicted. As for the Carcosa bit, what was all that about? Well, I may have two answers. Kinda. Riddler was partially wrong in the author of Carcosa being unknown. It is said to have been written by Ambrose Bierce. In the short story, a man awakens in the wilderness with no memory of how he got there and eventually sees a grave nearby that shows his name and date on it. He now knows he is dead amid the ruins of the ancient and famous city of Carcosa. The story was later referenced in a short story collection called The King in Yellow, written by Robert W. Chambers. Stay with me here, but in the book, there is a play of the same name. Very long story short, The King in Yellow is a play that is translated into French, but then banned by the French government as people started going mad after reading it, which is believed to be due to the obscene material of the second act. This is where things get confusing. Basically, the book inspired real-life writers, one of the more famous ones being H.P. Lovecraft. You know who this dude is, and I don't need to explain why. The play itself was never actually written, as it is merely referenced in Chambers' books. He wrote out excerpts in his stories, but never a full thing. Many other authors, however, ended up toying with the lore of the play. Imagine it as the MCU. You have one universe revolving around this play, and many different writers are getting involved in what happens to it. No one is communicating with each other, therefore the history is foggy at best. Some depictions have it being destroyed entirely by the year 1990, and some say it's currently in Brazil, probably found by Dominic Toretto. How does this tie into Carcosa? Simple. Most interpretations have the King in Yellow ruling the city of Carcosa. To tie it all back together, Lovecraft was inspired by the original writer of Carcosa, who included a character named Hastur. Originally, he is a shepherd god and is quite nice, but in Lovecraft's work, he is the half-brother of Cthulhu and is a man in long yellow robes. By the Lovecraft lore, the King in Yellow is Hastur, meaning he is a god of evil, and in said lore, he has the ability to twist minds. So if the Riddler did indeed finish the fictional play, this is probably how he got in contact with the King in Yellow, aka the King of Carcosa, aka Hastur. It's possible this is why he is left in the state that he's in. My second answer is simple. If you know DC lore, the colors green and yellow are quite an interesting combination in this video. Green represents willpower, which is symbolic with the Green Lantern Corps. Their archenemies are the Yellow Lantern Corps, as yellow represents fear, the opposite of willpower. It's possible with Riddler being paralyzed, this is a subtle hint that he got in contact with a character named Parallax. Not that shitty cloud in the movie. In comics, Parallax is basically the god of the Yellow Lanterns and embodies fear itself. The being is so powerful, it managed to corrupt even the strongest of wills like Hal Jordan, arguably the strongest of them all. The creature instills great fear and can engage in mind manipulation, making him a formidable foe. Granted, both of these theories can be correct. Considering Hastur and Parallax have similar skills and similar themes of bending minds with their horrific imagery, it's possible Parallax is indeed the King in Yellow. Sheesh, this place is nuts. We got prestigious crocs, talking bats, crazy scarecrows, yellow kings. What's next, murderous pigs? Professor Pig. Oh dear. Professor Pig is an interesting case among Batman's rogues, primarily due to how late in the game he appeared. Professor Pig debuted in 2007 as a corpse, but later got to be the star villain in the late 2000s to early 10s. The story is that Laszlo Valentin suffered a psychological breakdown. Like most Batman villains, a lot of his history is unclear, but what it resulted in was him trying to perfect humanity. He drugs his victims and performs grotesque surgery on them to essentially create what he calls Dolatrons. In his eyes, he is perfecting people by taking away their individuality. This is actually a play on his name, as he is based on a character named Pygmalion. I think that's how you pronounce that. It was a play based on a Greek man who fell in love with one of his sculptures. The play shows him creating the perfect woman with his sculpting abilities before she comes to life. But yes, he sports a pig mask and was featured in one of the more disturbing levels of Arkham Knight. He may be a more modern character among Batman's rogues, but he is one hell of a standout. Fans love him, and he is a good contender for Arkham Asylum. In his video, we are shown an ad for Professor Pig's Pizza Gonza. This already looks pretty shady. The advertisement seems to show that the establishment is a spooky version of Chuck E. Cheese, or rather just baseline Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. We are then shown a videotape player for a man named William. Okay guys, what the fuck? Our speaker says he is quite proud of the business he has been able to make. Between building the animatronics and then making it a popular family place, it's all been a dream come true. Unfortunately, he has been taking too many risks. He is going to undergo a transformation, but he will always be watching William, even if he won't look like himself. To survive, he must fully embrace the Professor Pig personality. He says that no matter what, he will always love him. We cut to a news report with Jack Ryder claiming the creator of the pizzeria has gone missing for 3 months. Since then, his business has been shut down due to multiple accidents. One of the androids apparently attacked a child, which costed him an arm. The city is shocked and saddened as the video ends. Damn, not even kids can find sanctuary in a place like this. The video itself is a lot more simple than the Riddler video, which makes sense, all things considered. The trick of making him a bit of a play on the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is actually a good move on his lore, and a great way to make him relatable to modern audiences. Additionally, Pig's voice actor was decent. At times he sounded a bit robotic, but I took that as a sign of him losing his humanity, especially because he was dealing with animatronics as his main source of crime. Overall, I'd say this was a good video. Professor Pig was absolutely a must-have for analog horror, so it was good to see him finally make his big break. That said, between this nut job and the last, I think I got my hands full. I'm gonna tag out for now and let Mr. Dr. Professor Ratio take the syringe for a bit. Good luck, man.
Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is another popular villain of The Dark Knight. Originally, Dr. Pamela Isley, a doctor of botany who survives a poisoning attempt, which mutates her and allows her to communicate and control all forms of plant life. Typically, she has the goal of eradicating humans and letting the green take over Earth once more. Some versions, she serves more as an anti-hero, but generally she's more on the villainous side. More recent media interpretations have had her become the love interest of Harley Quinn, but the tape begins with an introductory video from the Martha Wayne Botanical Garden, which goes over that the Wayne Foundation has funded them to complete numerous tasks given directly from their bioscience division. As a new member of the science team, you will be observing, caring, and reporting the genetically modified plants housed there. The main rules include keeping frequent and open communication with superiors, following instructions to the letter, proper sanitization and maintenance, and lastly, don't lie to Mr. Wayne. The tape cuts to footage found from a cassette tape found near recently deceased Wayne Tech phytologist. The voice of Pamela Isley addresses that this tape is meant for Harley, aka Harley Quinn, and she doesn't know why she's really making it, but to just listen. Pamela laments on how they haven't really seen each other since college, but she heard through their friend Jeremiah that Harley got a job working at Arkham Manor, so she's happy for her. Pamela goes on and confides to Harley that she knows Harley won't judge her or think she's crazy, even though that's what Harley does for her job, on a day-to-day basis. Everyone knows Pamela loves plants ever since she was in elementary school and her class went to the quote-unquote slaughter swamps to try to, help it recover from all of the waste that was being dumped into it, as well as a priest at her church further helping her love for plants grow when he taught her how plants could communicate and function. After years of school, essays, college, more school, Pamela went to Slaughter Swamp with a tiny shred of hope that all the work she's done over the years, as well as the efforts of others in Gotham, could have maybe helped save the swamp. But once she arrives, she realizes the cruel reality. Gotham's factories would keep dumping their waste into Gotham's nature areas. So Pamela went home in a fit of grief, and she did some stuff she's not proud of, injecting herself with a formula that she has saved on her laptop. Ivy finally found out how to listen to trees. It turns out all she had to do was turn the dial on what she was listening for, but now she unfortunately can't turn that dial back, so to speak. Ivy decides to leave these tapes for Harley, so Harley knows at least that Ivy isn't dead or insane or question what happened to her. She's still here physically, but her body isn't the same anymore in terms of appearance and who's home, so to speak. She's not the only thought in her head anymore. She can hear the thoughts and feelings of every single plant in a 5-block radius, everything, and it's hard to tell where her thoughts begin anymore. Her skin is blistering and hardening into this bark-like substance, like a sapling's soft bark almost. She knows the plants are coming to claim her, but she's not afraid. even as she hears them scraping against the windows and coming up the stairwell. She can finally make a difference and use her plants to stop Gotham's industrial factories from poisoning the nature areas. She sees this as a new beginning, a fresh start for a new world, a different world, and a different her. The death of a flower to make way for the fruit. She's going to leave this tape on her desk for Harley. The tape cuts to distorted sounds and these haunting noises before the tape switches to a distorted news broadcast with reports of plants growing inside of people and photos of people with plants erupting out of their faces. Final message from Ivy can be heard as she whispers to not cross the Witch of Gotham, and no one is safe from him. Thus concludes Ivy's tape. I gotta say, this tape, it's a slow burn, but it is so good at building this world and just the character of Ivy. In just a few minutes, you learn exactly what drives her to do what she does, and you feel bad for her in a way. She has good intentions, but just like all the other villains, it becomes this twisted means to an end. I like the idea of her and Harley being friends before becoming their villain personas, and the way you can tell how much trust Ivy has for Harley, for her to even go into this much explanation, and leaving the tape specifically for Harley to find. The tone of Ivy's voice and calmness of her explaining everything adds a whole other layer of tragedy, since you know she's committed to her plans now. She's changing, and she admits herself she can feel her own will slipping away. Then her plans to go after the industrial companies evolves into something more sinister, with the photos of the innocent people being transformed and mutilated by these plants. Overall, an unsettling and tragic tape, very, very well done. Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul is a complex villain who has extremely personal ties to Batman, typically through his daughter, Talia, a love interest of Batman in different comic arcs and media interpretations. But the origins of Ra's vary vastly from comic to comic, but the consistent background revolves around Ra's being a physician hundreds of years ago who discovers the Lazarus Pit, a pool capable of resurrecting the dead and or prolonging life with some negative side effects, unbeknownst to him at the time of discovery. The main side effect being insanity, but Ra's uses it to extend his life over the centuries and forms an organization known as the League of Assassins. This group has the goal of cleansing the world of corruption and humanity, and essentially using eco-terrorism to achieve its goals. But due to his prolonged life, Ra's becomes both insane and a master of combat, and he also has some magical powers in some iterations as well. But as for the Arkham Tapes, the tape begins with an advertisement from Lazarus Pharmaceuticals, which is promoting a new de-aging cream. Ra's hops on the mic under an alias of Ducard to promote the cream, and we get a preview of the insanity very quickly. The tape cuts to a news broadcast of the warning signs of satanic behavior in people, such as antagonistic behavior towards others and towards religion. The news broadcast goes on to describe the dangerous satanic practices of underground cults, which operate in the night. The members of these cults partake in the sharing of animal blood, but believe the real strength comes from, and the tape suddenly cuts off. The tape continues again to Ra's addressing Batman, and telling Batman to listen to what he has to say. Ra's goes on a little yap fest on the relationship between gods and humans, and the idea of worship, which Ra's tried to stop in the beginning, but he learned he couldn't do. Ra's becomes the head of the demon as a necessity, and took his followers' burden of being their leader, and he has slain countless murderers and innocents, and he has burnt cities to the ground and raised them up again. He has stared into the face of madness, and it stared back at him. If Batman is listening to this tape, Ra's is dead, and he feels his life is at the end, and the demon possessing him must find a new host. Ra's al Ghul reminisces on a battle between him and Batman years ago, in which they fought in the desert to the brink of death, and Batman saved them by dragging them into the Lazarus Pit to revive them. And Ra's describes Batman's will as inhuman, and he has had an obsession with making Batman his successor. Yet Batman's constant refusal leaves Ra's desperate, similar to Batman. Roz explains that the trap he and his followers have set for Batman, in which Batman will discover the animals they have slaughtered, and Batman will be forced to kill Roz. Completing the ritual, there must always be a head of the demon to keep the demon at bay. And Batman will become that head. He will become a god. The demon will take control of Batman and drive his motives. It will use him and discard him, just as it did with Ra's al Ghul, but only if Batman allows it. Raj ends the tape by telling Batman to go and be the savior that Gotham, the world, the universe are screaming out for. The tape ends and cuts to new footage found at a crime scene on November 11th, 1994. The footage begins with heavy breathing as the camera operator traverses an abandoned building, with strange visuals and distortions appearing as more strange sounds can be heard as the tape goes on. Then what appears to be a cult member raises their arms as this demonic chanting can be heard, and these different demonic images of faces and skulls flash across the screen. Finally, to Ra's al Ghul's face, before an off-camera scream is heard. The tape then cuts to Batman, crouching in an empty room, breathing heavily as a strange demonic noise can be heard. His bones crack and shift as he slowly turns towards the camera and shrieks, "Reborn." Thus concludes the tape. So once again, a very well done tape with very, very well done acting. I really like the idea of the League of Assassins being this devil-worshipping cult. It really fits with the 90s vibe, and, there's a very big fear in the 90s of, cults and whatnot. Ra's al Ghul being desperate for Batman to be his successor also fits well, and it's very in character, and you can clearly see the insanity take form through his plan to have Batman become possessed by this demon. It also helps explain kind of why Batman has been acting so strange in the earlier tapes. This new entity in him definitely is a driving force for his absolute craziness. But let's see what Mr. Minus has to say on the next tape.
Grundy. Solomon Grundy is yet another example of why you should never want to live in Gotham. If the flying bats, killer plants, clowns, and literally murderous clay wasn't enough to make you drop your rent, perhaps this guy will. Originally, he was introduced as a villain for the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, but has since become a mainstay on Batman's roster. His backstory is that he was a merchant named Cyrus Gold in the old days before he was killed and dropped off at Slaughter Swamp. Gotham really knew the reputation it was going for with names like this, huh? After this, Solomon Grundy usually arises through villainous means. Sometimes it's through science, sometimes by magic, but every time it's just because the villains don't comprehend. Sometimes, dead is better. Regardless, he is basically immortal. No matter how many times he is buried, he comes back to life, making him a permanent stay at Arkham Asylum. As for his video, we open up with a report that MOPA received a transmission about strange occurrences in the Narrows. Upon arrival, it was basically abandoned until they found a body. After this, we see... of course. Once again, I am talking about zombies. Guess I can't outrun the dead no matter how far I run. So yes, there seems to be an infection, cause Gotham wasn't in enough danger, I guess, to which our agent, known as Cyrus Gold, is requesting assistance. We're back with Hugo Strange, who explains it is March 14th, and reveals the asylum was shut down. He has since relocated to a warehouse in the Narrows and has resumed his work with the assistance of his benefactors. Out here, he is working on a genetic resilience and neurodynamic yield virus, otherwise known as GRNDY. Grundy? The experiment will be helped by a Dr. Achilles Milo. He is a smaller character in the comics as he is basically an evil chemist. Hugo is looking to see if the virus will make a super soldier serum of sorts. The next day, we see the first subject died immediately from internal bleeding. The Clayface sample in the virus is said to be the root cause, so on March 16th, the next subject... well, he still dies, but they got more data as he started to turn primal before dying. Hugo sees in the autopsies that the subjects are moving despite being dead. Therefore, they are to be moved and observed elsewhere in the facility. The next day, Hugo is being pressured for results and speaks of an incident. A subject broke out and ripped out a staff member's throat, causing her to turn as well. Hugo seems to be very unaffected by the fact that he just created zombies. Dude clearly did not play Resident Evil. March 19th, Milo sabotaged the formula and Hugo is abandoning the facility as he is the only staff left. MOPA is believed to be closing in, but he is taking a sample with him before infecting the building. We then cut to Agent Todd and Agent Gold's footage of the raid on the lab. Things don't go all that well and they break down doors, and Gold is taken by the infected. Todd returns and requests a missile strike to end the whole thing. We then cut to footage of Gold, who is dying on the floor, before we hear his mutation and the video ends. The video is pretty straightforward, as we see Grundy this time is in the form of a virus instead of the comic book magic stuff they used on his body. In many ways, this video makes Grundy reminiscent of Nemesis from Resident Evil. Once again, a good video. It kind of repeated the format of the Man-Bat video, but I still liked it. My main thing is that this one leaves a lot of questions. Who are Hugo's benefactors? As a comic fan, I speculate perhaps the Court of Owls, but it could be any number of things. Additionally, if you're a good Batman fan, the name Todd probably caught your eye. For non-fans, one of Batman's Robins is named Jason Todd. Despite being popular now, he was quite hated when he initially debuted, causing fans to vote for him to die. The character was beaten to death by the Joker, but was later brought back in the Lazarus Pit as Red Hood, where he then dishes out his own form of lethal justice in Gotham City. Todd seemed to know his way around a gun, but I don't know if Jason would sign on to something like this. Then again, Grundy wasn't a Frankenstein monster, and instead is a Resident Evil boss, so who knows, maybe the next video will provide answers. The Bristol Incident. The final video of Volume 2, the Bristol Incident, clocks in as the longest video, being 20 minutes long, so once again, fasten your seatbelts. We open with an advertisement for Crest Hill Community. How people actually can afford rent with the endless dangers of Gotham City is beyond me, man. We then cut to some Bible footage, sorry it's Wednesday, not Sunday, before we see it's October 21st, and well, as I live and breathe, the Batman. Joker was turned into Arkham Manor after his visit to the doctor. Batman is now ready to go about testing something, but it's unclear what. What is clear is that Alfred is very much so against the notion, but Batman says he owes it to Jason and Batgirl. We see more Bible footage before we see it's now April 2nd, 1994. Batman has revealed Joker has taken over Arkham Manor, thus he has gotten desperate. He has taken both Hugo and Kirk's serums and modified it to allow his usage without any side effects like what Kirk and Harvey suffered, including the burns to Harvey's face. There's more Bible stuff, goddamn evangelicals, before we are back with Batman. He sounds a bit more tense as Batman claims the experiments are effective but will continue monitoring them. This is because he now plans on utilizing Scarecrow's toxin as he wants to access the Fearscape, the purpose being to enhance his stealth. On top of this, he's going to modify a sample of Clayface so he can learn how to utilize his powers and resist his acidic touch. Alfred, again, is repulsed, but Batman isn't listening. When has not listening to Alfred ever worked, Bruce? Good God. We see it's October 14th now. Batman confirms Joker has escaped Arkham Manor, so things have gotten more desperate. He has stolen Riddler's radio in an attempt to learn how to control technology, and has the King in Yellow script to try and help out. He's also got Croc and Kirk's blood running through his veins, and has brought some of Pig's animatronics to upgrade his suit. Alfred is so concerned he whipped his dick out. Oh, sorry, he brings Dick out. Jesus, people, what an inappropriate name. Let's call him something cooler, like Nightwing. Despite the pleas of Alfred and Nightwing, Batman just will not listen. We hear more prayers. No, I don't have time to talk about Jesus, okay? The spaghetti monster, on the other hand, though. Anyways, it's now November 30th. All the villainous toys he has finally took over, and he showed up at GCPD, and, well, again, lonely Thanksgiving. Now, having taken Ivy's project, he has found she's alive, and also has a healing factor coming from the Lazarus stuff. Batman's DNA is rewriting itself, and now he is desperate. He has no idea where Gordon or Alfred is, and is hellbent on finishing this war. It's Christmas Eve, and Batman now has the Bale voice. He's obtained the GRND virus and is beyond human at this point. Batman is now setting his sights on the Joker and plans on ending him. He claims he is only the monsters made him. The camera glitches, and it is said that a strange sound was heard at Crest Hill which caused the people to go mad. By the time the madness settled, it was too late. Our last footage is a building at night with people cheering loudly. Mopa is now focused on defeating Batman, but if they can't, well, we might want to call the punk rocker himself. We then see Batman staring at us before the video ends. So, a lot happened here. Firstly, I will say Batman going evil is no new plot point. There's an entire team of evil Batman called the Dark Knights. Basically, every Justice League member crosses over with Batman, and now they're out to cause chaos. One of them in particular is the Batman Who Laughs. You've probably seen this dude in Fortnite, canon to the comics by the way, but basically he's a Batman who took Joker toxin and went mad. His Robins even ate Superman. If Batman does get Joker, this is a good way to segment into that, considering he wants what gives Joker his abilities. But that's just a theory. The voice acting here was solid as well. The actor did a good impersonation of Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, and showed a Batman descending into madness. My only complaint was I felt the Bible stuff was a little random. If my Batman lore is right, this was supposed to be Deacon Blackfire. In the comics, he's basically a religious zealot. He even made an appearance in Arkham Knight. I feel there could have been more done with this character in this format instead of just splicing him into a video where Batman is obviously the main focus. The story has much larger scope now, so it'll be interesting to see where this all goes. Well, Volume 2 definitely had a lot more content to cover. We had more villains, more mysteries, and more chaos. The format is still similar, but the creator managed to keep things interesting with the different showcases of the villains. Another thing was that there are small updates to the characters that I feel work. Solomon Grundy in particular being a zombie virus was a good idea, as it keeps the idea of him being undead intact while also adding a new spin on him. Overall, I'd say this is still a solid series and can't wait to see more. Now with that said, I'm taking the 4+ mobile because I need a vacation. Gotham City is a bit too much for me, so I think I'm just going to go somewhere less chaotic. Perhaps Central City. On that note, before I dash off, I'm going to hand the mic off to Mr. Dr. Professor Ratio. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Minus. Volume 2 definitely has a lot more lore added to this universe, and we start to see the bigger picture as to the state of Gotham and how these villains are starting to connect to each other in some ways. The format has a lot more physical acting this time compared to the first volume, which I appreciate. It adds more, I guess, realism, if you want to call it that. This series continues to take these iconic villains and add these little horror elements to them, such as the League of Assassins and Ra's al Ghul with demonic possession, Poison Ivy with her body horror transformation, and then whatever the fuck has been going on with Joker and that damn smile. I enjoyed this volume quite a bit, and as both Mr. Minus and I can agree on, we are eager to see more. Be sure to go check out the videos themselves, they all deserve all the praise they can get, and the creator Batfeed, as well as anyone else who had a hand in working on these, all did a fantastic job. But we do plan to cover more of this series once Volume 3 is more complete, so yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to follow us on our socials and Discord, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Thank you for listening to us yap today, and if you enjoyed, be sure to check out our other content on the channel. We hope you enjoyed, and we shall see you all later. See ya!